Welcome to today's Lightcast webinar. We're going to be looking into digital badges. The title of the webinar is Building Inclusive Pathways to Jobs with Data-Powered Digital Badges. I'm Will Cookson, an account manager at Lightcast. And today's webinar, I think, should be a really interesting example of how labour market data can be applied operationally to inform skills and employment-based interventions. In today's webinar, we'll be learning about how Lightcast Insight has been integrated into Navigatr's digital badging platform. We'll also be getting a first-hand account about how Belfast City Council have implemented digital badges to bridge skills gaps as part of the Cities of Learning movement. I'm really pleased to say I'm going to be joined today by Tim Riches, the founder and executive director at Navigatr, and also Michael Kane, who is the professional and business services lead for employability and skills at Belfast City Council. A little bit of housekeeping. If you do have questions, there's a chat bot and you can raise those questions. We'll do our best to answer those. We're quite limited on time, so we may have to come back to you after the webinar. But we have also got some regular common questions that we will address when we get to that point later in the webinar. A recording will be made available for everyone that's registered, and slide decks will be shared, just so that you know. In terms of agenda, we're going to do a little introduction on Lightcast and Navigatr. Tim from Navigatr is going to run through Digital Badges 101 and talk about the Lightcast integration and the introduction of a jobs feed. Then we're going to hand over to Michael, who's going to take us through the implementation at Belfast City Council. We're going to have some space for questions, and then we'll have a summary, closing remarks, and next steps. So in terms of Lightcast, our mission is to unlock new possibilities in the labour market. And I think what we're discussing today aligns really well with that. How do we do seek to achieve this mission? We do it through labour market research, providing access to analytical software, and providing data expertise around both of those things. Who do we work with? We work with education providers, further education, higher education, to connect their provision to the needs of the labour market. We work with government entities to create more effective programmes for economic prosperity. And we also work directly with companies to better understand their own workforce skills and look at talent acquisition and management to support future growth. Right, at this point, I'm going to hand over to Tim, who's going to tell us a bit about Navigatr.
Thanks, Will. That's great. I was just thinking back this morning that it was 3 years ago that we started working together collectively. I think we were both working in Southampton at the time, and just starting to think about, wouldn't it be great if we could connect the economic modelling data, which provides amazing insights for cities and places when they're planning their skills development. Wouldn't it be great if we could connect that to skills data and badges, so we can start to understand what's working for which groups and why in a city, and we could also start to create more holistic and inclusive pathways to work in places. And really, one of the things that was at the core of that was creating or having access to a common language for skills. And that's what really attracted us to the partnership and working with Lightcast, because that was really that skills taxonomy. That common language of skills was based on data from real job adverts and real job resumes. So that was really at the core of what led to this partnership. In terms of Navigatr's mission, we're dedicated to building products that make it easy to recognise skills, that help people and organisations to thrive. We use digital badging or digital credentials. You may even hear them referred to as micro-credentials as well, and AI and skills data in order to help education providers create and issue badges that track impact, but really importantly align to the labour market, because sometimes education and employment is detached and they speak slightly different languages. We are working with employers to help them identify, retain and develop talent, with individuals to understand how their skills can help them connect through to opportunities for work. Whether that individual is taking a standard route, a sort of qualification route, if you like, or whether they're taking an alternative route into education. Because, we strongly believe that whatever route you take through life, you are developing skills all the time, but you just need help in connecting those to your career. And then finally, we work with cities and regions to help them map and recognise and connect learning across places, and to understand and develop the skills that they need to thrive as communities. So before, on these sessions, we tend to just do a quick Badges 101. If you've seen this before, apologies, but many of you will be joining for the first time and hearing about badges and pathways for the first time. So I'm going to give you a quick introduction. So first of all, one of the questions that people often ask is what are digital badges and what can they recognise? So in short, digital badges are a new kind of visual way to recognise any kind of knowledge, skills or experience. So it can be anything from informal learning, and this first badge on the left is from Code Bar, and they do HTML and software training in Southampton and internationally as well. But that's outside of a formal education environment. And then the next credential we have is for training. So this is from Ahead Partnerships in Leeds. They do training around getting girls into tech. And then the next we have certifications. So certifications can be issued to an individual, excuse me, or to an organisation. This one was issued to Navigatr. It's about going through pen testing and cybersecurity. But certifications can be issued to, it could be for being competent in using software, and they are quality assured by a third party, or by a really transparent process for validating those. The next is qualifications. So qualifications we all know, and if you're joining from the States, this is credentials. So these are issued from a regulatory body that is authorised to give a qualification. And then finally, membership. So being a member of an organisation. This is from Leeds Learning Alliance in Leeds. And so joining this, you sign up to the values of creating inclusive pathways to work and working in partnership with employers and providers across the city. So there's a really broad set of different types of learning that badges recognise. So badges are designed to be shared on social media. They're a kind of new way to do a certificate ceremony, if you like. This can be posted on LinkedIn, and you often see people liking and upvoting those credentials. So that's great for the individual and really motivating. It's also good for the organisation who's issuing the badges because they have a link back to that organisation, so they promote the organisation who's issuing as well. Digital badges are verifiable, so they really move the idea of a certificate on in a significant way. So when you look at a credential, when it's shared with you, you can see who it's been issued by and who it's been issued to. They contain a description and lots of data about that credential. And they also critically have skills within them, and we integrate with Lightcast skills. So these skills are embedded within the badge, so you can really see it, have a sense of what someone's done to achieve that badge. And as I say, they're linked back to the issuer as well. So you might be thinking it's quite a lot of data and there's a lot of information that needs to go into a badge, and how do you do that? So there's a set of tools to help you with that. When we first started to design badges back in 2012, it was a paper-based process. And we worked with dozens of organisations. What we started to observe is that everybody would describe skills differently, which was going to cause a lot of issues when it came to comparing badges or building pathways. So we were looking for a common skills language, and that's when we came across Lightcast. And we started the process by just looking at the skills database and manually putting those skills into badges. So we had a consistent language, but the process was really complicated. We then developed the skills scanner. So that allowed people to put information about a course or a program in as text, and then it would scan and suggest different Lightcast skills tags to put into the credential. And then finally, we landed on the idea of creating an AI badge creator, or the badge assistant, as we call it. This is a really good application of AI because this isn't a job that someone wants to do, sift through 30,000 skills and try and match them to a badge. Creating a badge with the Navigatr AI badge assistant is really simple. It works similarly to other tools you're already familiar with, like ChatGPT. You input a prompt about the type of learning you want to recognise, and the AI will create a badge with well-defined criteria, accurately aligned to the labour market with Lightcast skills in. Of course, you need to review the badge and make some tweaks, but we find this is a huge time saver. So you've got your fantastic badge, and what can you do with it? Well, obviously you can issue that badge, but you can also put those badges into pathways as well. You might hear this called stacking as well. We tend to use the terminology pathways. So this is an example of a pathway from Leeds. It's a suicide prevention charity, and on the left it starts with an engagement which is about introducing the person to the charity and its work. So this just might be a short workshop or event they go to. Then they move into training and doing specific training modules. They then apply their skills in practice, and then they go through to training other people. So this is one example of a pathway which can take someone from just finding out about a new program to developing their skills, demonstrating in practice, and then going on to training others within the organisation as well. Another example, I won't go into detail on this, but some really interesting pathway examples from Belfast, which are connecting, again, an introduction to a subject, and this is one for the Transport Academy, but then going through practical tests and then eventually through to certification. But what's really interesting about this example, and this is where one of the pieces of the partnership comes into place with Lightcast, is that this connects people to live job opportunities in places, which is very motivating for the individuals, and Michael will be talking about that later. So once you get those amazing badges, what can you do with them? Well, they come through onto a skills portfolio or a wallet or a passport where you can start to showcase either all of those skills. You can share them by email. You could share a QR code. You can place them into LinkedIn, into the sharing, or into LinkedIn certificates. And that's an effective way for you to showcase your skills to others. And you can also download them and move them between platforms as well. And you can show a comprehensive range of achievements from qualifications to informal learning. So lots of data is captured through the process of creating and issuing badges. And this really helps organisations to see and demonstrate the impact that they're having and measure progress towards a goal over time. And again, Michael will be covering this in a bit more detail later. So you might be wondering, if this is the first time you've heard of badges, how are they developing worldwide? How often are they used? This graph is a little bit out of date now. It's 2022. And then at that point, there were 75 million badges issued. You've got all kinds of organisations, people you recognise like IBM worldwide, and then the UK City and Guilds Group and Open University. So they're being adopted by a wide range of employers and awarding organisations and local organisations as well. And the current estimate is around 250 million have been earned worldwide. Household names, like I say, like City and Guilds in the UK, who've issued now 500,000 badges for their qualifications. But you might also be wondering, what do employers think about badges? And there's a couple of really interesting studies here. The first is from a survey with 250 hiring managers in the States. 83% of those say that they would prefer digital badges for verifying candidates' job skills. And 60% that they said they'd be more likely to give that candidate an interview if they had digital badges. Another study last year from just over 1,000 CEOs and hiring managers is that 68% said that they would prefer a degree with a micro-credential compared to 14% who would just prefer a degree only. So really interesting information. Employers saying that they would like to see credentials recognising job-ready skills for anybody who's coming for that job, and then also looking for differentiation when it comes to a degree and looking for work-ready and essential skills to be demonstrated in addition to the degree. So we have really effective ways to recognise skills, all kinds of learning in all sorts of different environments. We're seeing really strong adoption worldwide. We're seeing really strong interest from employers as well. So the question now is, how do we piece all of this together to create these pathways into work in places? And we did our first place-based project in 2014, and there was a couple of really interesting things that came out of this. The first is the individuals who received the badges really valued that recognition, but they also had some challenging questions as well. They wanted to know, would this badge actually help me get a job? Would it help me go into a pathway to work? So that currency question is something that we've been working really hard on, is making sure that they have value, not just for the individual, but also for employers as well. And Sheffield Hallam University, who did some research on the project, said that in order to have really effective pathways or for a badging program to work, you'd have to engage a range of stakeholders, from employers to training providers and other strategic partners in cities as well. And after our work with the RSA, which led to the development and launch of the Navigatr platform, we've been working with a range of cities across the country who are all really, I think, working on a common theme, which is to create inclusive pathways into work which benefit individuals, but also benefit the local economy as well. So I'm really delighted to have Michael here with us today. He and his team have been working on digital badging and pathways for the last 2 or 3 years now. And I'm not just saying this because Michael is here, but Belfast have a really sophisticated programme and case study which takes into account, it works with strategic partners, from employers to local training providers as well, and links to live job speed. So I'm really delighted to hand over to Michael, who's going to tell us more about that now.
Thank you, Tim, for those kind words of introduction. So I'm Michael Kane. As Will said earlier, I lead our professional services work at Belfast City Council. I also co-lead our digital badging work. I think before we launch straight into the impact that digital badging has had for us, I want to say a few words just by way of context for Belfast, because I think this will be important whenever we go to place digital badging within that context within a few moments. So we are, within our employability and skills team, we are a non-statutory service. So therefore, we're not mandated by government or by central government to do what we do. Rather, the interventions that we design and lead are seeking to complement existing statutory provision. So therefore, employment outcomes are important for us. That's one of our major objectives in terms of what we do in our programs. So therefore, we use the terminology like what's presented here in this slide around being demand-led. So we work with employers who have real jobs on the table and who are seeking individuals to fill those. We also in Belfast, rather unfortunately, are languishing at the wrong end of a league table which measures economic inactivity across the UK. So like other parts of the UK which are close to full employment, we have any growth in our employment numbers is likely and will need to come from parts of our supply that currently are deemed economically inactive, and hence why inclusivity is really important as one of our objectives. We also tend to design and deliver programs which are in essence proofs of concept. So we start from areas of, we try new things, we try creative, we try innovative things, and where those gain traction and success, we then seek to scale those. And often that means that the programme and delivery moves away from local government, away from council, and into other further central government departments as well. So how do we do what I've just described? So look, this is quite a busy slide, and I don't expect you to be able to read all of it. But in essence, what it is, it's a bit of a wheel of how we seek to deliver probably our most dominant offering, that we call employment academies. So these are interventions which can range from, the majority of them range from a small number of weeks up to maybe 4 months in duration. There are some examples which go beyond that, but not many. And if you start in the top right corner of the screen there, typically that's where our efforts start in this regard. So if we would keep tight eye on labour market demands, we have quite extensive links into employer groups, employer federations, chambers of commerce, federations, etc., that you would expect. And where there are unmet demand needs, typically that's where we offer employment academies. Now, in a moment, I'll give you an example of one of those, but that typically leads on then into where we seek to recruit individuals. And typically that involves quite rigorous testing, what we call aptitude testing of the individuals for the roles that are being offered by employers. And taking this back for a second to the digital badging conversation, typically these people that we're trying to recruit and upskill are people with little or no formal qualifications. So therefore, our ability through our intervention to offer the micro-credentialing, the digital badge for the interventions that individuals are benefiting from is being very much welcomed by both the individuals, but also being recognised by the employers as well. So moving on round the wheel just quickly, we move into a training aspect. I've already mentioned typically what that duration can be. That can be technical training, but it also can be what we call employability training, getting people ready for the world of work. And again, our digital badging suite covers all of those. And that runs right through until employers offer interviews for the roles that are on offer, and then that's followed by a period of aftercare that we, as a council, offer to ensure that the individuals settle and are happy within their respective roles. I mentioned that we offer employment academies in a number of spaces. Here are a number of examples of those. These areas would typically be intelligence-led. They would typically be areas in which we see demand for people, and for whatever reason, there is unmet demand. So therefore, we seek to find individuals and put them through our academies and make them employer ready. I want to take just a couple of minutes to give you a little bit more detail on an example. So on the previous slide, I mentioned, or it was mentioned, that there's a technology employment academy. And the objective of the Technology Academy is in an area where there's, to be honest, largely exponential job growth opportunities. There simply are not enough people coming through from formal education pathways to meet that demand. So therefore, we're seeking to identify employers who are prepared to give others an opportunity in the world of work, people who can demonstrate high levels of aptitude for the world of technology, and we're seeking to put those people through a 16-week intervention in this case to get them ready for a job in technology. So as I said before, aptitude is important. We rigorously assess that, and as part of our induction activities, we really, I suppose, offer a range of aptitude processes, including online assessment, group work assessment, interviews. That's how we select the individuals onto our programs. So the pathway that the individuals, and again, taking this back to digital badging, the pathway that we offer on this example is typically 14 to 16 weeks. Each of those weeks typically has different learning objectives, different learning outcomes expected. So that fits really neatly with the concept of micro-credentialing each of those components as part of the pathway. We ran this effort a couple of years ago for the first time, and we really were blown away by the outcomes that were achieved. All of the people who went through the original academy moved into employment, and all of them remained in employment some 12 months after completing the academy. All of these individuals now have digital badges for the pathway that they undertook, and all of them are keeping and have their digital wallets and are keeping them up to date. So back maybe onto a little bit more about badges. This has been adequately covered by what Tim said earlier, but this is what it means, I guess, for us. Those on the right-hand side there, you can see what the Belfast City Council badges look like. We have specific branding that has been employed and applied here. A visual way of recognizing what otherwise would have been training and learning that was undertaken by individuals and really went underneath the radar in terms of recognition of that. So again, just to give a little bit more, and Tim spoke about this earlier, this is what a badge looks like, but importantly, this is what the narrative for Belfast might look like. And I've given an example here just of an induction badge where you have the narrative at the top, you have a number of skills tags which flow neatly in beneath that. And the skills tags are really, really important. These are areas in which which link through ultimately to the employment and the job opportunities that the individuals ultimately will benefit from. And then at the bottom there, you have the earning criteria, the effort that the individuals have gone to in order to in order to achieve that badge.
So moving on now to how we've used the Navigatr platform for our digital badging. So Navigatr, and we've found tremendous success, I think, from using the platform. The individuals, the learners, have their own individual accounts or a digital wallet that we call for all of their learning, and in there is stored all of the digital badges that they have earned through the various learning interventions and pathways that they have undertaken. One of the big benefits of using the platform has been the ability to link job and employment opportunities to the learning that's been undertaken. And I'll say a little bit more about that in a second. But the Navigatr platform is a very user-friendly way for the individuals and indeed ourselves as administrators to keep track and keep record of all of the learning that's been undertaken and the various progress that has been made. So then moving on then in terms of saying a little bit more about how we've used Lightcast. So on this slide, the pathways into employment, I talked earlier about the pathway, which is what you see down along the left-hand side. But on the right-hand side of this slide, you will see how the skills tags have been used to identify opportunities from the labour market, live job opportunities from the labour market. And these can be filtered according to mode of employment, whether that's full or part-time, or whether it's geographically near to your location or elsewhere. And you can select then opportunities which are relevant to the learning that has been undertaken. Now that's a tremendous advantage for an individual to be able to have those opportunities pushed to them on the back of the learning that they have undertaken. And we've seen great success from this particular aspect of the offer.
So the impact of digital badges, we continue to work on this project. As I said, we have a gestation of 2 to 3 years currently. It's our ambition to continue running with that, certainly for a good period. And there are benefits for the three parties listed there. I think in terms of the providers that we're working with, They, as you would expect, have a long history of delivering training in some of these areas, but many of the courses and curricula that they have developed and are offering have, as I said before, sort of went underneath the radar. They haven't really been recognised in a formal way. So the digital badging has worked really well for them. The learners, they absolutely love the digital badges because they've now got within their digital wallet a whole suite of recognitions for learning that have been undertaken that otherwise they might have had very little for. And then for employers, and I would say the employer piece is probably a bit of a work in progress for us. Yes, we are working with lots of employers on this. I think our holy grail for this would be ultimately to see employers perhaps altering and changing recruitment practices to take recognition of the learning from the individuals that are coming forward. Now, we're making small steps of progress on that, and I would certainly say that it's a priority for us as we move forward. But the impact and the benefits that we have seen have been very real and has given us a lot of oxygen and encouragement as we move forward. So in terms of our achievements and numbers there, we're really proud actually of what we have achieved on the project so far. We've north of 330 badges published with 39 pathways created, significant number of activities. I think in terms of the badges issued, we've something like just over 6,500, I think, at the time of writing these slides. What we did, and I'm not sure even to this day whether it was a good idea or not. You'll see that the claim rate sits there at 65%. The reason why that's lower than I would like it to be and we would like it to be is we set about retrospectively issuing quite a number of digital badges. So our employment academies have been running for years and years and certainly predate our efforts on digital badging. So what we thought was that we would offer digital badges and issue digital badges to quite a lot of people who had completed their learning prior to us getting involved in the digital badging project. And what that has meant has been, and some of those people are accessible at this point, some of them aren't. And hence why it has been harder, I guess, to get those individuals to formally accept, which in essence is the click of a button for them. But that's why it's lower than actually what I would like it to be. Some of the numbers presented here, I've just spoken a bit about, but on the Navigatr platform, it gives tremendous access to, at a glance and at a very high level, what's going on and where it's going on. So you can see there the number of badges created, the activities, and claim rates are all included. And that actually drills right down into what activities have been undertaken, and ultimately, as an administrator, as an administrative user of the system, you can actually drill down into seeing which individuals have accepted their badges and which ones perhaps need a little prompt to do so. The analytics piece probably has been adequately covered by Tim earlier. Again, it's a feature of the Navigatr platform, which allows us, I guess, as administrators of the system, to see what's happening across, what provision is happening across our city. Where is the areas of demand? Who is accepting badges and for what reasons? Which areas of employment really are pushing the boundaries, and which areas perhaps are in less demand? So all of that management information is tremendously useful on the Navigatr platform. So I guess in conclusion, we certainly have had a lot of benefits from the digital badging efforts in Belfast. I would say, probably like most new things or most new projects, it's probably taken a little while to get it embedded. I think we're in a good place with it now, and we certainly have significant ambitions as we move forward. So, look, I'm going to pause there for now, and I'm going to hand back to Will.
Thanks so much, Michael. Really impressive and great to hear about how you've applied this digital badging concept on the ground in Belfast. Lots to take from that. We've got some questions. These are common questions. And Michael, these are going to be coming in your direction. So hopefully you'll be able to field these. How have you approached engagement with stakeholders? Obviously, this project work that the whole mission you're on requires you to raise awareness of digital badging with a whole range of organisations that won't be aware necessarily of them and what the purpose is.
Yeah, sure. So look, my economics background, sort of, I take most of these things back to a demand and supply lens. So please bear with me as I seek to answer that. I think one of the things that I've benefited from, I've been in council just over 3 years now, but the people who preceded me had built up a tremendous relationship with a huge range of stakeholders across our city. So we have a network that we communicate probably with on a weekly basis of north of 300 organisations within that network. So I have been fortunate in that I've inherited that as a vehicle or a way of connecting into what is largely the voluntary and community and third sector organisations. So from an engagement point of view, that community were a bit of they're a bit of a gift to me, insofar as it was an easy introduction to that community to say, look, the people with whom you have the relationship with, namely the people whom we want to offer jobs to, we need you to understand what this project is. We need you to impart that information onto the individuals, and they have done that with open arms. So that I would crudely call that sort of the supply side. On the demand side, which is on the employer side, as I said in my piece earlier on, I would call this a work in progress. So certainly there are, in the areas where we are working there, all of the individuals are getting awarded digital badges. And some of the employers, I would say, recognize those for what they are. And I say that because for employers to change recruitment practices, which is ultimately, I think, what we would like to see, is that these badges then become part of a recruitment process for employers, whereby it allows them perhaps to take out part of their recruitment activity, be that verification or be that understanding, taking the time to understand what learning individuals have taken. But I certainly see a bit of a change in appetite and demand there. And we're just continually making the message, selling the benefits of doing this. And we're certainly seeing more employers, I guess, it's certainly perking more of their antennae. So I think on the supply side, it was straightforward and they all love digital badges. And on the demand side, I think we're making progress. But I'm not sure that we're necessarily to a place of where we would like it to be just yet.
Sure, makes sense. How do you intend to measure success of digital credentials?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, and look, crudely, in my piece earlier, I gave a number of crude numbers around how many badges have been written, how many have been issued, how many have been accepted, etc. So, in one sense, those are a set of outputs. Those are a set of outputs from our efforts, some of which have quite big numbers attached to them, some of which are smaller. I think what we are in the business of doing is, as well as measuring in quantitative terms, we're in the business of changing hearts and minds. We're in the business of trying to get employers in particular to understand what the importance of this initiative, the importance of this of these digital badges to the individuals, and ultimately how it can help them. So there is, as I say, and we all need sort of short and medium term milestones and KPIs, and we're happy with where we are on that. But I think on the demand side and on the employer side in particular, we're starting to see a bit of a change in momentum, but it absolutely is a hearts and minds piece rather than simply measuring and calling out the number of employers who are using these.
Yeah, that makes sense as well. Interesting. It goes beyond the numbers. So what are your future aspirations beyond what's currently planned? It feels like you've achieved a lot in a relatively short period of time, but I'd imagine
Yeah.
there are more ambitions.
So just a quick anecdote on this before I give a fuller answer. This is a project. This is a project that has captured the attention of council right to the very top. So in my interactions with our chief executive, um, and I speak to him maybe 2, 3 times a week, at least one of those occasions he asks about digital badging. Because I think in his conversations with other local authorities and with other government departments, it definitely is recognised as a bit of as something as basically the future. I think it's recognised as the future way. So I think in terms of our aspirations, I think it's captured not just our attention as individuals, but also the attention and probably admiration of the broader organisation. We continue to work on this project. It's absolutely our ambition. It's a priority for us. I think what we will do is that we will probably work more intensively with those that have perhaps made the most progress so far. Because when we started this project, we had, through our contracting procedure, we had an ability to offer licenses to a number of other participating organisations. And some of those organisations, to be frank, did what they said they would do, and they badged a lot of their provision and they issued badges, and others perhaps did not do so. And there was a whole plethora of reasons for doing that. So I think our focus now is actually less about breadth and more about depth, I think. So for the organisations who really are interested in this, who see the benefits, we are interested in how we can support those organisations even further. And I think that's really important as we seek to move from what is an offer into what I would call an embedded culture, culture of micro-credentialing and digital badges in terms of what we learn. So I think I mentioned earlier that we were in the business of testing proofs of concept. I think we've moved beyond that now. We're into sort of a mainstream phase, I think, of digital badging. And I think we've some distance to travel on that journey.
Thanks, Michael. Sounds like very much you're focused on how you make it sustainable and make it, like you say, integrated into and future proof it, essentially. Make sure that it's there, there to stay, which sounds great, particularly based on everything else that you've shared. So just leads me to summarize, I guess. As you should all be aware now, digital badges are easy to share, verifiable, and now have a clearly defined pathway from skills and learning recognition through to employment and jobs. Obviously, if you've got further questions you want to reach out, you can do. You'll have my details and Tim's details and Michael's in the follow-up email. There's also an opportunity to start a free trial with Navigatr, which will include the Lightcast jobs feed. So if you're interested and want to find out more and want to test it, you can do that through a free trial that will be running over the summer period. And then the next webinar we haven't got a title for it yet, but we will do. It's coming on the 25th September, and that's going to be a practical look at how you build a pathway using everything that we've gone through today, but maybe more of a operational focus of these are the steps that you need to go through, and that will be on the 25th of September. So I'd just like to thank you for joining us. Thank Michael for his time and input, and thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Will.